Good evening, everyone. So I have been told to relate my story to the person that I introduce, but I don't think so. I can finish my story in just 3 minutes. But I promise, Marilyn, that I will not cross 3 minutes or 4 minutes. I'm Shakila Fro. I was born and raised up in Afghanistan, where as a little girl, I was dreaming of becoming a businesswoman. I followed that dream to India, where I completed both my undergrad and my first master's degree. And then everything changed. Afghanistan collapsed into the hands of Taliban. My plan and the dreams of millions of Afghan girls were shattered. I was unable to return to the country where I left in 2018 to pursue my higher education. The country that still holds my heart, my family, my loved ones, and my memories. That's when I came to the United States last year on a student visa from India. Not just holding my books, but holding a heart full of pain, grief, resilience, and responsibility. While I am incredibly privileged to pursue my advanced education here in the United States, it's impossible for me to forget those who were left behind. Millions of Afghan girls in Afghanistan are now deprived of their most basic human right, the right to education. I think of my friends, my family, and my classmates, and I carry the sorrow of their silence with me every single day. I also carry a purpose that I will speak up for them, advocating for their rights, and also keeping their struggles visible to the world. At this moment, I wouldn't do justice if I don't thank my university, Loyola, who awarded me with a scholarship, and to two incredible women, Miss Linda and Miss Judy, that their support has played a significant role in where I am today. Tonight, I have the honor of introducing someone who understands what it means to live and go through profound changes and live and then turn it into purpose. She is an artist and also a public health leader based in Chicago. She blends electronic music with community impacts and performing under the names of Sylvia and Separate Species. She has also featured in many international labels from Germany to Australia. And she has laid up some of most Chicago's iconic dance floors. And also she's holding a residency in venues like Soundbars and Primary. But beyond the music, she leads transformative work at the Chicago Department of Public Health, where she serves as a director of public health operation, where she addresses the HIV, mpox, and viral hepatitis through a lens of equity and justice. She moved to the US from Poland at the age of 10, and she earned a bachelor's in biochemistry, a minor in philosophy, and also an MBA. Her life shows us how powerful it is to not choose between creativity and service, but you can live boldly in both of them and make the impact across them. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our inspiring and talented speaker.
Thank you for that beautiful story and the kind introduction. so I have some big shoes to fill for many reasons, but also because my grandmother was actually the best storyteller in the family. So a story of hers that I would like to share with all of you today to start is about her first day of school. In Poland, where I'm from, school starts always on September 1, or the next business day. And my grandmother was supposed to start first grade in Poland at 8 a.m. on September 1, 1939. Yes, I hear some World War II aficionados in the room. Unfortunately, at 4:30 a.m. that very morning, about 200 miles from my family's home, which is about the distance from Chicago to Indianapolis, the German battleship Schleswig-Holstein was moving into battle position on the Baltic Sea. It pointed its guns at the Polish naval base at Westerplatte, and within 15 minutes fired what were the first shots of World War II. My grandmother described planes flying over the house and sirens blaring, and there was no school that day. The events of that morning signaled what was to come next, and that was the invasion of Poland by Nazi Germany from the west and Soviet Union from the east. They had many plans, which included the colonization of Poland and uprooting, consequently, some Polish families from our land and removing us from there. So a few weeks later, after September 1, my great-grandmother heard a knock on her door. And it was a Russian soldier who told her she had minutes to get ready to leave. So she got her 5 kids and whatever she could, and my family was put on cattle cars along with many other Polish families from the region and taken deep into Soviet territory, into Siberia, which is all the way in Asia. There, my great-grandmother had to cut trees in a dense forest near the Arctic Circle. It's called the taiga. Conditions were not good. Food was scarce. And my grandmother's youngest brother, an infant, died of starvation. But my great-grandmother learned there was a way to get out. So she moved south through Asia and west through the Middle East to Africa, where countries like Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania welcomed Polish refugees along a series of camps on the shores of Lake Victoria. And my grandmother had many stories from that time. She told me about learning how to petrify a starfish, about a nighttime encounter with a hippo. They're not friendly. About how her and her friends were being bad and they got chased by a silverback gorilla, but I think they kind of deserved it. They were trying to steal a baby gorilla. Terrible. And they also noticed that the best fruit grew on the highest parts of the tree, so they would actually ask monkeys to throw it down to them, which the monkeys would, but they take a bite of it first. I am not kidding. Food was scarce. So at the end of the war, actually the American army was the first to walk into the camps. Ooh, my mic almost fell. Closely followed by the Red Cross, just 3 days behind. And then my great-grandmother had the choice of accepting amnesty, either in Australia, England, or the United States. But she chose to go back to our family farm in Poland. As you can imagine, it wasn't in perfect shape, and actually a part of it was appropriated by somebody else in our absence. Poland was very poor for a very long time, and my family struggled. So when the Iron Curtain lifted in 1990, my mom and my aunt decided they would come to the United States to make money. I remember the day my mom left. I was 6. And every morning I would wake up and call her name, but that day my grandma came in. And she told me my mom kissed my hands and my feet and wanted to leave before I woke up, because then she wouldn't have it in her to leave. And so we didn't see each other for 4 years. And when she came back, she said we'd be moving to the United States. Unlike Poland, the US was not poor, and there were many more opportunities there. But I was not thrilled. I loved playing with my cousins on our family farm, the very one that my great-grandmother went back to. I loved my school. I loved being close to my grandparents. But we moved to a country where I didn't speak the language. Now, my first day of American school was not exciting. I had to follow a teacher I couldn't understand to a room full of kids that surrounded me, and I couldn't understand them either. I just knew they were asking questions. And I learned that I was culturally different too. For example, in Poland, you never address a teacher sitting down. You always stand up and you raise your hand like this, which is kind of awkward, apparently, in the States. And so I learned actually the kids were kind of making fun of me a lot in class. It took me a few months because I didn't speak English, but once I got it, I was like, oh. And so linguistics is an area of interest for me for many reasons, including when I was 15, I got appendicitis. And it was a perfectly normal appendectomy. But my mom, who was a skilled ICU nurse, noticed I wasn't healing as I should. So she complained to my surgeon, who wasn't particularly interested, it seemed to me, in hearing her out. I actually had a massive pelvic infection, and I still have effects of it even now. And I remember when my mom and I went to the local pharmacy to get antibiotics, and I have this very vivid memory of the pharmacist ridiculing her accent. So, years later, when I learned that I could volunteer as a Polish to English interpreter at a local free clinic that served many immigrants, that was a no-brainer, right? And I loved being there and helping other immigrants and other communities who experienced barriers to care. So after a few years there, I learned I could actually make a bigger impact working at the Chicago Department of Public Health. And that's what I do now. But I truncated a lot there for you. So maybe I'll jump to my art, which luckily can tell volumes where words fall short. So you'll see these bird motifs that are flying up. And these symbolize the acts of dreaming and hoping, something we do as immigrants and refugees. And the background is illuminated by light, which symbolizes dreams and goals that we're trying to reach. And though you might not see it on the projection, that light has some trouble getting through because it's obscured by many layers of tissue. And each of these layers symbolizes barriers that we might have to overcome to reach our light. 2, the piece is designed to move with whatever's happening in the room. So if you walk by it, because it's so light and tissuey, it might ebb and flow with whatever's happening around it. And that's because if you're an immigrant or refugee, you might find yourself at the whim of forces beyond your control. But the real inspiration for my piece is a form of folk art from my part of Poland, the Northeast. It's called wycinanki, which is paper cutouts, as you see in so many cultures in the world. And some of these silhouettes are cut out to allow more of that light to shine through. And that light symbolizes my culture and my family history, which I so often rely on to illuminate my path as things get difficult. And so when I constructed this piece, I realized it's not just my story. It's actually just my story is a part of a legacy of generations of incredible women who traversed continents and crossed oceans to bring their family to safety, to reach their goals and their dreams. And so maybe when you look at this piece, whether here or outside, you might think it's pretty or attractive or haunting or interesting, or maybe in the grand scheme of human stories, not that remarkable at all. And whenever I reflect on my story, I think all of those things, sometimes at the same time. But maybe too, as you look at this piece, you might see your story, because so many of us are trying to work through barriers and find our light. But we find it difficult, and we have things we lean on to illuminate our path. And so maybe when you reflect on this piece and the stories it represents in your story, you might find that even if someone is from a distant land and maybe doesn't look like you or sound like you, they're actually not that different from you at all. Again, my name is Sylvia Dziemian, and I call this piece for Lisa Wax, who was my art teacher in high school. Thank you all.